Good afternoon and welcome. In today's webinar, we're excited to shine a spotlight on Energy Management Information Systems, or EMIS, a core component within ERA's Strategic Energy Management for Industry program, or SEMI. Let's kick things off by introducing the voices powering today's webinar. My name is Filocha, and I run the marketing engine behind ERA's efficiency programs. And I have the pleasure to co-host this webinar with Parminder Sandhu, Managing Director at Enerva Energy Solutions, our service provider for the SEMI program. Parminder will be taking the lead on today's presentation, and he will also join us for the Q&A. So get those questions ready. Before we dive into today's agenda, I'll quickly cover a few housekeeping items to help us make the most out of our time together. We're excited to have over 100 attendees registered today, so to keep things running smoothly, all microphones are currently muted to prevent any background noise. We encourage you to share your questions at any time during the webinar using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. For the best viewing experience, you can switch to full screen mode by clicking the arrow icon in the top right corner of your screen. If you encounter technical challenges related to the webinar connection, you can contact our technical support specialist, Sophie, at sashworth@eralberta.ca. But don't worry if you can't resolve your issue today, or if you need to leave early. The recording of this webinar will be posted on the ERA's website and YouTube page shortly after the live session. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge where we are. In the spirit of reconciliation, we, at ERA, acknowledge the privilege of living, working, and investing on traditional territories, which include Treaty 6, Treaty 7, and Treaty 8 nations, Otipemisowook Métis government of the Métis Nation, Inuit, First Nations, and all others who live and care for these lands. We are dedicated to promoting a culture of collaboration and meaningful engagement. Now, in terms of our agenda for today, we'll start with a quick introduction to ERA and Enerva, followed by a high-level update on SEMI activities. Then we'll move into today's topic, an overview of the Energy Management Information System under SEMI program. Then Parminder will walk us through what is EMIS, core building blocks, EMIS architecture, a case study, and finally, we'll highlight the funding opportunities available to support EMIS implementation so you can make the most out of these resources. We'll wrap up with a Q&A session. Let's start with a quick overview of ERA. As you can see on the slide, everything we do is grounded in a clear vision, mission, and operating model. ERA has a long track record of supporting Alberta's competitiveness while delivering real environmental results. Our programs help businesses adopt technologies that cut emissions, reduce costs, and improve performance. We are funded through the Technology Innovation and Emissions Reduction, or TIER Fund, which reinvests industry carbon pricing into innovation across the province. When the SEMI program launched in October 24, the province reinforced a key message. If you're seeking access to capital, you need to show a genuine commitment to lowering emissions and improving environmental performance. That principle is at the heart of ERA's mission. Our investments help Alberta's businesses stay competitive, attract investment, create jobs, and deliver strong environmental outcomes. And our vision reflects that balance. Economic and environmental success go hand in hand. Everything we fund is designed to advance both. And this brings us to the SEMI program. We've seen tremendous interest across the program, and as a result, two of our four activities, EAA and SEM, are now fully closed to new applications. Capital retrofits activity is open for applications until March 2nd, 2026. To manage high demand and ensure funding supports the most impactful projects, ERA has transitioned this activity to a fixed intake model. Under this structure, all signed capital retrofit applications received between January 7th and March 2nd, 2026 will be reviewed, scored, and ranked against the evaluation criteria. Funding will be awarded to the highest ranked applications until the capital retrofit activity budget is fully allocated. EMIS, which we are focusing on today, is still open, but only until March 31st, 2026. And applications are moving quickly. So if EMIS is part of your energy management plan, this is an excellent time to take action. And one key reminder, to be eligible, you will need both your Facility Readiness Assessment, FRA, and your EMIS terms and conditions signed by March 31st, 2026. Keeping that deadline in sight will help ensure you don't miss out. With that, I would like to pass it over to Parminder, who will provide an overview of Enerva Energy Solutions and break down what EMIS is, why it matters, and how it supports better decision-making across your operations. Parminder, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. Hi, everyone. Great to be speaking to you today. I'll briefly just share a bit about Enerva Energy Solutions. It's a Canadian company specializing in energy management systems. ERA competitively engaged Enerva to deliver the Energy Savings for Business program, as you can see on the screen there. And we're happy that we've been able to deliver that. And now I'll share a little bit more about the specifics of the SEMI program. An energy management information system, or EMIS, is a system that combines meters, sensors, and software to collect, analyze your energy data, and process across all of your facility to empower operators to optimize energy management. This is a very technical description reflective of the associated infrastructure. My shorter version is an EMIS system measures and monitors your energy productivity and provides actionable insights to operators and sometimes even control capabilities. Another important feature of an EMIS is that it gives you visibility into when and where energy is being used to support continuous improvements. In other words, an EMIS turns raw data into insights that help reduce waste, improve performance, and strengthen operational decision-making. The image on the right helps illustrate this. Utility bills are like rear view mirror or a side view mirror. They only show what happened weeks ago after the costs have already been accumulated. An EMIS, on the other hand, is like a dashboard while looking through the windshield. It shows what's happening right now so you can take action immediately rather than waiting for the next billing cycle. This shift from looking backward to looking forward is what makes EMIS so powerful. On this slide, we break down the 4 main reasons why an EMIS delivers strong value for industrial facilities. First, cost savings. Many facilities see a typical payback of under 2 years because EMIS helps detect waste and optimize operations. Literature shows that energy consumption can be reduced by 5 to 15% through the application of a well-designed EMIS system that fits your facility and operating characteristics. Second, there's funding support. Through ERA's SEMI program, participants can access up to $250,000 in EMS funding, covering 50% of the eligible project costs for for-profit organizations, but the deadline is March 31, 2026. This significantly lowers the upfront investment required to get started. Third, energy visibility. Instead of waiting for a bill, EMIS shows you what's happening right now, so you're not flying blind. You can respond immediately to abnormal loads, equipment faults, or unexpected consumption. And fourth, it makes compliance easier. Because EMIS automatically collects and structures your energy data, it becomes much simpler to generate measurement and verification reports for capital retrofits or any other energy saving measures. This reduces administrative effort and supports accurate tracking of performance over time. Together, these benefits make EMIS one of the fastest and most impactful ways to improve energy performance and operational efficiency. Now let's go over the 5 core building blocks. This slide is a simple way to explain what an EMIS is made of and why deployments succeed or sometimes fail. It's a layered stack. If the bottom is weak, everything above it becomes unreliable. So let's start with the data acquisition. This is your meters and sensors. At the foundation is measurement, utility meters, sub-meters, production meters, control points, and sensors. The key message here is no data, and you really don't have an EMIS system. And if the data quality is poor, with bad intervals, gaps, or wrong scaling, everything above becomes very noisy. The next layer is connectivity. This is about getting data out of devices and into a usable stream through gateways, network connectivity, protocol translations, whether you're using Modbus or BACnet and others. This is where integration problems typically show up: drop signals, inconsistent timestamps, and mismatched tags. Above this is your data storage, or sometimes called a historian. We need a single source of truth, a historian or time series database that stores validated, time-aligned data. This layer is about governance. It must have naming conventions, the asset hierarchy rests here, the calibration reports, retention, and any auditability. On top of that is your analytics engine. So this includes things like dashboards and insights. So once the data is reliable, we move to analytics with baselines, normalizations, dashboards. All your anomaly detection and opportunity identification rests here. Key points are analytics should drive decisions, not just pretty charts and alerts and root cause analysis, but prioritization. Above all that is the management framework. So this is where the people and process take over. At the top is the part that creates savings. So roles and routines, the KPIs, the review cadence, and accountability rests there. Even the best EMIS won't deliver if no one takes action or verifies the outcomes, and then embeds this into operations. So the pyramid is a maturity roadmap, layering on the instruments, the connectivity, the storage, the analysis, and the actions required. When we assess readiness, we're really checking which blocks are already in place, which are missing, and what the lowest risk path is to build upward, consistent with the framework used by Natural Resources Canada and the semi-program guidelines. Let's briefly talk about the cycle here. The EMS is a closed-loop performance cycle. It's not just monitoring. It's a system that helps the facility detect issues, decide what to do, and then act. Then verify results and continuously improve. This image converts the layered stack into a cycle with continual examination of the current performance of the EMIS and improvement over time to deliver energy performance. When this cycle is working, it consistently delivers three outcomes: early detection of issues, strong decision support, and verifiable evidence of your success. EMIS works when it completes the loop. Detect is step 1 and 2, decide is 3 and 4, and acting is 5 and 6, delivering early detection, decision support, and verifiable results. Let's switch gears a little bit about some differences in the architecture. There are three main architectural choices that you'll need to make. First, whether you want to use a wired or wireless solution. Next, whether it's integrated or an isolated system from your process control and other control systems, or whether you want to do it on-premise or make it a cloud-based solution. When we design an EMIS rollout, the first architectural decision is how you'll get data from the equipment to the platform. Wired systems are best when you're integrating your control decision logic into the EMIS. For example, this could include responding to utility load curtailment signals or time of use pricing. Easier for new construction, or if you have existing communication cabling or conduit capacity that can be used. Also use it when you're existing, you can also use it for both existing on-premise or cloud infrastructure. We've seen significant integration costs and often need to be scheduled during maintenance shutdowns. That's one of the downsides. The trade-off is mostly deployment friction, higher installation costs for the conduit and cabling, labor costs, longer timelines, and less flexibility if you want to move sensors at a later point. The other option is a wireless network. Some of the characteristics here include a much faster and easier to deploy. We've seen installs that can happen in a single day for simple sensor networks, ideal for retrofit installations and hard to reach or long distance measurement points. And security is addressed with end-to-end encryption, typically with advanced encryption protocol using 128-bit encryption. So there are many considerations when selecting the basic system architecture. One of the most important is also financial considerations in terms of the ROI associated with an EMIS solution. The scope, structure, and feature set will drive the deployment cost. Make sure the benefits align to get your expected ROI. Our mantra is ROI first, sensor second. Hence, carefully assessing and estimating the expected benefits and energy savings potential, and then work backwards to develop an EMIS cost structure that can deliver the expected outcomes. I just want to briefly touch on a potential way to overcome some of these barriers using a LoRaWAN installation. Building on the previous slide, where we compared wired and wireless architectures, this slide examines one specific wireless option that's especially effective in industrial applications called LoRaWAN. Wireless directly addresses the main wireless use cases we talked about: hard to reach locations, speed of deployment, lower cost, and rapid deployment, because it avoids the biggest retrofit constraint of running cabling and conduits in aging facilities. Why LoRaWAN is often the wireless default for retrofit monitoring? First, it has a superior range. LoRaWAN is designed for long-range telemetry, so it's more reliable across larger plants with various barriers and obstructions. Second, there is the potential for dramatic cost savings. We've seen some installations that are about 70% lower in cost. This is a big reason it shows up in retrofit EMIS. You avoid the trenching, the conduit, and the cable pulls. Sensors can mount quickly, sometimes with magnets and adhesives, so you can scale from a pilot to full-scale coverage without a major construction project. Many sensors are also have long battery life, so you can almost set it and forget it. So it's low power, which supports multi-year battery life for many sensors, often 5 to 10 years, depending on the sampling frequency. This reduces maintenance burden. So when you choose wireless, LoRaWAN is often the most practical option for retrofit applications because it maximizes coverage, minimizes installation disruption, and allows us to quickly expand monitoring and fill coverage gaps in areas where running conduit would be costly and impractical. Let's briefly talk about establishing energy accountability centers, because this is a very important topic. The energy accountability centers are about turning energy from a facility-wide bill into something we can manage, assign, and improve. Think of it as 3 layers of visibility, from the macro to the micro. So you go from the site, the processor department, and then down to the asset. Each layer answers different energy management questions. At the top level, the main utility meter gives us the total facility picture. This is used for bill validations as an example, or tracking overall trends, annual budgeting, and confirming whether the facility is improving over an annual basis. But the limitation is it tells us what happened, not where or why. So the key message is site level data is essential, but it's not actionable on its own. Then we can go to sub-metering at the processor department level. This is where accountability starts. Here we can identify which areas are driving consumption, compare departments, and benchmark performance. This is also where we can set targets and ownership. At the line and department level is where you are responsible for these types of loads. Key message is sub-metering turns data into something teams can manage. At the third layer, we have asset monitoring, or at the equipment. Asset monitoring gets us to the equipment level, at the motors, compressors, steam generation, and other major loads. This is where we find the why of inefficiencies, abnormal operation, even drift over time, and opportunities for optimization. This level supports faster troubleshooting because we can tie changes to specific equipment behavior. The key message here is asset monitoring is where savings are identified and sustained. So the takeaway is site tells us the outcome, sub-metering assigns responsibility, and asset monitoring enables action. That's what we mean by an energy accountability center, creating a structure where energy performance can be measured, owned, and continuously improved. Now that we've covered the building blocks and how we set up an energy accountability center, this slide is a practical playbook for implementation, how to make sure the EMIS setup is actionable. First, start with a right metering and sensor deployment or placement. Here we need single line diagrams, and a walkthrough is the best way to do it. So we don't want to guess where to put the meters. So if you can use a SLD and a walkthrough to confirm what's actually currently installed, so meters and sensors are placed where they'll capture meaningful decision-grade information. This prevents common issues like metering too far downstream, missing shared loads, or collecting data that can't be tied back to an accountability assignment. The key message here is good EMIS starts with correct mapping for the current situation and setting objectives. Next, we prioritize controllable high-impact loads. So EMIS helps refine the measurement strategy over time. We start focusing on loads that are both controllable, because operations can change, and material. They represent a meaningful portion of total consumption. That's how we get the fastest ROI, targeting materially controllable energy consumers, and then expand network coverage once the value is proven. So start where action is possible and the impact is large. Next, we assign ownership to every meter and KPI. Every installed meter or sensor needs a clear owner, a person or team with the authority and responsibility to act on what the meter shows. Otherwise, we end up with dashboards that look impressive, but don't drive operational change. In practice, we define who reviews it, how often, what thresholds trigger action, and how issues are escalated. Key message here is if you don't have an owner, you don't generate savings. So the implementation sequence is map the system, meter strategically, and assign accountability, refine and expand based on impact. This is what turns EMIS from a monitoring project into an operational performance program. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit on a case study. This is a relatively simplistic case study, but practical and real. So in this example, the site had no real-time monitoring or alerting, so abnormal energy use wasn't visible when it happened. In a simple example, but illustrative, in this situation, we had a sanitation shift that ended at 2 a.m., but the hot water valve got stuck at a 15% open position. Perhaps it was a faulty valve. The condition went unnoticed and heated water was going to drain for weeks. This may not get picked up until someone notices a high bill. Again, a very simplistic example. The issue may go unresolved, so early detection and corrective action is important to minimize energy waste. So in this particular example, the scenario in the case study, but we show that the changes with EMIS in place, the difference is simple. EMIS compresses detection and response from potentially weeks to minutes. So at 2 a.m., the valve fault occurs. 2:15, the EMIS detects some abnormal behavior and triggers an alarm based on some thresholds and expected schedules. In this case, the EMIS is monitoring the hot water use. At 2:20, the operator is notified, and in 5 minutes, a manual override is implemented. So the net result is a problem that could have run all weekend or even longer is stopped in about 15 minutes. EMIS isn't just monitoring, it's early detection, escalation, and then an action. The speed directly converted to dollars in payback here, with about $2,000 in avoided costs, almost $10,000 if you extrapolated the savings, and then a simple payback of less than 2 years. This example illustrates how an effective EMIS system can be used to identify and target operational waste. Let's talk about the SEMI program and the EMIS activity. There are 2 critical dates for SEMI EMIS applications. So we have to plan backwards from those dates. The program does not allow extensions. So March 31, 2026, this is the application deadline. The application must be complete and submitted. This means that the scope is defined, the supporting documentation is ready, vendor pricing and quotes are all in place. Practically, this deadline is about being paper ready. If the application isn't complete by this date, the project can't move forward. March 31, 2027 is the installation deadline. This is the full completion deadline. Plan backwards from this date as well. By then, EMI system must be installed, commissioned, and fully operational, and invoices must be paid. So this isn't just hardware delivered, it's a working system in service. Treat March 31, 2027 as the full in operation date. This slide shows a realistic sequencing that aligns with the two deadlines. So between now and end of Q1 2026, confirm your eligibility, define that scope, and secure your vendor quotes. Then finalize and submit the application by March 31, and then procure, implement, install, and then commission in Q2 to Q4 of 2026. And then in Q1 of 2027, we can do the final payments, then document and close out the project. The biggest risk to timelines is leaving procurement and integration too late. So we recommend starting vendor engagement early and building in contingencies for commissioning and IT security reviews. Let's talk about the funding that's available. Now that you've covered the program timeline and firm deadlines, this slide summarizes how much funding is available, how cost sharing works, and what costs are eligible. So funding is capped based on your facility energy use, up to $250,000 for large facilities. That's the ones that consume over 400,000 gigajoules per year, and up to $50,000 for small facilities consuming less than 400,000 GJs annually. For most applicants, the program covers 50% of eligible project costs. There's also enhanced funding up to 100% available for nonprofit and Indigenous organizations. Eligible costs are the core elements needed to implement EMIS, including the hardware. So this is your meters, sensors, and gateways, and whatever else you need. Software licenses and subscriptions, any installation and commissioning, the training and implementation and support, the facility gap analysis if required. In short, the program supports both the technology and the enablement needs to make it usable. On the non-eligible side is the program excludes costs not directly required to purchase or install the EMIS and costs that fall outside the eligible time window. All costs are only eligible if they occur within the program window of October 16, 2024 and before March 31, 2027, with the installation and commissioning complete. Next, we'll confirm which funding category you fall under and what a complete eligible budget would look like so you can make backward plans and the deadlines and meet the deadlines. So the enrollment process. Let's quickly review the enrollment process. This slide outlines the main steps after your FRA agreement. T's and C's have been signed by the ERA. The registration is straightforward, but handled through the semiprogram.ca portal. Step 1 is submit the EMIS application. This can be done by your eligible contractor. Step 2 is ERA's service provider reviews the application. Number 3 is confirm scope, budget, and sign the T's and C's for the EMIS. Implement the EMIS at your facility, submit your post-activity deliverables and invoices, and then receive the incentive as the final step. The semi-program website also includes a document called EMIS Application Guide that describes the requirements of the EMIS application in greater detail. And now I'll pass it back to Anna.
Thank you, Parminder, for that detailed and well-articulated deep dive. With that context in place, we'll now move into the final part of our presentation, the Q&A session. I want to highlight that on the SEMI website, we have provided answers to commonly asked questions. On this slide, I have also provided a summary of the most common questions we have received to date about EMIS. If you haven't already, please type your question into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Some of our frequently asked questions are: what is the deadline for EMIS applications? It's March 31st, 2026. Do I still need to complete the FRA first? You will need to sign the FRA participant terms and conditions before submitting your EMIS application. Please be advised that registering or completing an FRA does not guarantee funding for your EMIS project. When can I expect to hear about the progress of my application? You can expect to receive an update once your application has completed the initial eligibility and technical review stages, which typically occurs within a few days of submission. We will notify you by email as soon as your file moves to the next step, or if any additional information is required. That brings us to Q&A. Feel free to ask us any questions. Please note that we might use your questions in our frequently asked questions on the SEMI website. We likely won't have time to answer all of them today. So if we don't get to your question, please submit it to us by email at semi@eralberta.ca, and we'll be happy to respond to you. Now let's see what we've got. Parminder, what's the typical ROI?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. The honest answer, it depends. Here's how we help clients think about it, though. ROI always has two components. First, the cost of the current capital outlay, and then the future benefit stream. And second, predicting the benefit stream to make the investment decision. We always start by estimating the anticipated benefits, such as reducing energy use, creating visibility, providing insights to operators. This is very facility specific, and some of the attributes we look at include total energy spend, the controllability of the significant energy uses at the equipment level, and the current instrumentation infrastructure, and the relationship of energy use to the process or production. Once we understand these things and estimate savings targets, we can work backwards to design an EMIS system that can meet the ROI expectations of a customer. To answer your question a bit more directly, we target a 1 to 4 year payback as a sweet spot for the program. Our approach of working with the objective in mind helps customers justify that investment.
Thank you, Parminder. We also have Mustafa from Enerva and Luca from ERA to help us answer your question. So Mustafa, this one will be for you. As a technology provider, what is the best route to facilitate a client accessing funding from this program?
Thanks, Anna. That's a good question. First, make sure you're registered as a contractor on the SEMI portal. Next, we invite you to visit the SEMI website to review the supporting documents, such as Terms and Conditions and Application Guide. You have to take a note, some activity have a specific requirement for contractor. Your client also need to register on the SEMI portal to start their application. We'll share the link on the next slide, and it's also available on the SEMI website. Your client will then be able to select and assign you to their application so you can assist them. If you have any question about the eligibility or next step, please contact us at semi@eralberta.ca.
Thank you, Mustafa. Parminder, can an EMIS report specific equipment or unit process energy usage?
Yes, absolutely. And as I discussed in the ROI question, one of the important EMIS design considerations is to identify significant energy users and their controllability. So today, with advances in industrial IoT and edge computing, monitoring specific equipment is much easier than ever before.
Thank you. There is another one for you. Can the project that we put forth for the SEMI program integrate with the rest of our EMIS sensors in our facility, or does it have to be standalone?
Oh, great question. Yeah. As we discussed in the presentation, one of the fundamental decisions for EMIS infrastructure is either to integrate the EMIS or keep it as a standalone system. We've seen participants take both approaches successfully. For customers that have some existing EMIS infrastructure, we find that they can expand using the same approach, whether they've got an integrated or an existing isolated system. So most often, but not always, customers that have very limited or no existing EMIS seem to be leaning towards a separate or isolated system, as it's lower cost and faster to deploy. Both approaches work, though.
Thank you, Parminder. Another one for you. What type of EMIS system will qualify for SEMI funding? Software controls, what fits EMIS?
Yeah, so like we talked about in the presentation, the EMIS must have a few very basic elements. So the sensors and instruments to collect the data, communications or connectivity to centrally compile the data, the digital storage, any analytics engine to visualize and develop actionable insights, the ability to report and notify operators, as well as generate periodic energy performance reports. These are the components from the pyramid slide with the basic components, right? Let me expand on the analytics portion. EMIS analytics must be able to handle granular time series data and also discrete events. In normal steady state operations, there will be significant volume of time series data, but must be processed, including the data quality, such as anomaly detection, creating various presentment formats and visualizations. And then most importantly, how to interpret or extract actionable insights helpful to the operator's decision-making. I'd also mention that effective EMIS deployment must reduce the lag between the rearview mirror and the dashboard approach of allowing immediate interventions to keep within the energy performance targets.
Well, thank you, Parminder. Does just submetering utilities qualify as EMIS system? This one will be for you as well.
Okay, well, submetering by itself does not typically qualify. So EMIS does require that a system collect and compile and store the data, analyze it, and present it. So you have to provide those reports, not just the data collection hardware. If your utility submetering is coupled with these capabilities and the plan is to expand the system over time, then that's eligible and a good starting point. Just remember that the incentive request should align with the scope and scale of your proposed EMIS system.
Great, thank you. Mustafa, this one is for you. What qualifies EMIS vendor?
That's a good question too. An EMIS vendor is an organization that provides energy management information system. Should be including software, controls, or integrated solution that enable monitoring, analysis, and management of the energy use.
Okay, another one for you, Mustafa. Where do we find the list of consultants, contractors for EMIS?
We have the list of the registered contractor and consultant through the SEMI portal when you register on the portal.
Thank you. Parminder, this one is for you. What is the minimum eligible EMIS scope that qualifies for funding?
Yeah, great. So what we want to do is encourage customers to begin their EMIS journey. So we suggest starting small and then design an expandable solution. This can be as simple as additional sensors and instrumentation on a single significant energy user, or a piece of equipment, or a process line. Or you can also do something more comprehensive. My best advice is to align your budget request to the scope of your application. For example, if you're thinking something small, then don't try to maximize the available funding. Having said that, we want you to install a system that will allow you to attain the estimated benefit stream, so you get your targeted ROI. At the end of the day, it's about optimizing your energy use to improve your competitiveness.
Thank you, Parminder. That's another one. We have another one for you. What are the security considerations for a wireless network infrastructure EMIS?
Sure. The security provisions are the same as any wireless network if that's a way that you want to go. So similar to your office Wi-Fi network. So as an example, the LoRa and LoRaWAN networks are the best security process is to provision all of your devices using over-the-air activation, similar to what your Wi-Fi does. LoRaWAN compliant networks must also use, or embedded in their specification, is end-to-end encryption using AES standard 128-bit encryption. This encryption is embedded in that standard, so you'll be very, very, very secure.
Thank you. And Parminder, how long does it take to commission EMIS system? Will I be on time for March 31st, 2027?
Yeah, good question. So this is another one where I'd say it really depends. So the commissioning process is not that complex or lengthy, but it will depend on the scope of the EMIS. We expect commissioning to range from maybe a day or two and shouldn't be a barrier for the March 31, 2027 completion.
Great, thank you. Parminder, how quickly do organizations typically see value after implementing an EMIS?
Yeah, great question. So my thought here is that in a well-designed EMIS, you should be able to see immediate value. And that could be just from the visibility that the EMIS will create. So our design approach is to work with the background by estimating the expected benefits and then designing the system to deliver it. Hence, there's always short-term value and quick wins.
Thank you, Parminder. We have a question for Luca. How to apply for the EMIS funding? What are the next steps?
Yeah, thanks, Anna, and glad to give Parminder a chance to catch his breath. As Mustafa mentioned a little earlier on in the presentation, applicants must register on the SEMI portal and submit an application for the EMIS activity. Please note that the EMIS application becomes available only after signing the FRA participant terms and conditions. Once the application is initiated, contractors can be assigned to support the process. Detailed application steps are provided in the application guide on the SEMI website.
Thanks, Luca. We have a question from Mustafa. What is the process post-EMIS implementation to receive SEMI grant?
That's a good question. Once you install the EMIS and the commissioning is completed, you need to submit some required documentations through the SEMI portal for the review and approval. Those documentations are well established through the EMIS eligibility requirement. I can explain it, for example, such as invoices or sample of the EMIS data log.
Thank you, Mustafa. The next one is for you as well. How long does it take to get an EMIS proposal from vendor?
This is another question, which I would say it depends. Timeline very depending on the vendor and the complexity of the project. Applicants are encouraged to engage with vendor as early as possible in the process of the project.
Thank you, Mustafa. We have a question for Luca. If we choose Enerva as the contractor, will Enerva be reviewing the application for EMIS?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So yeah, as our program implementer, Enerva will be responsible for reviewing the application as described in the presentation to ensure eligibility, and also, frankly, just to help you ensure that you get the most out of your project, given the short timeline, to apply before March 31st, 2026.
Thanks, Luca. Parminder, this one is for you. Are there any ongoing operating costs after the EMIS system is installed, such as data hosting, maintenance, or annual subscription fees?
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so this will really depend on your EMIS vendor that you select. Especially if it's a cloud-based solution, there will be some data hosting and maintenance costs associated with that. So I would definitely connect with your vendor of choice and then ask them what additional data hosting or analytics subscription costs there might be. So that's going to be very dependent on the vendor.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, Parminder. Luca, this one is for you. Are there post-implementation requirements for industry? For example, are status reports or consultations after March 31st, 2027 required?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we do have some reporting requirements, and this ties into the fact that we're receiving funding from Natural Resources Canada. So one of their requirements is that we provide, data for up to a period of 4 years after the project has completed, and we'll provide more details to anyone who has submitted an application in terms of what those requirements are.
Thank you, Luca. And this one is for you as well. If you see a vendor that is offering the same service for a lower price, are you able to share that supplier among the applicants for the grants?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Generally, ERA is not in the business of promoting one contractor over another. So really what we do, ask people to do as part of their application is we always encourage you to get at least 3 quotes when you're talking to contractors, and that just helps ensure that you have a good sense of the different prices that are available. But yeah, it wouldn't really be our place to recommend someone based on a lower cost. And I guess I would also caution you that maybe a lower cost doesn't always equal the same amount of quality. So it's really up to the applicant to determine what's the most important factor to them and make that decision on their own.
Great. Thank you, Luca. Looks like we have no more questions. So I wanted to thank you, Parminder, Luca, and Mustafa for addressing those questions. And are you ready to start your SEMI journey? Register on the online portal today. We're here to support you every step of the way. We invite you to visit the SEMI program website at eralberta.ca/SEMI. As already mentioned, you will find there an application guide, FAQs, terms and conditions, and other supporting documents. If you have unanswered questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our program team at semi@eralberta.ca. A link to the presentation will also be sent to all those who registered for the webinar, as well as posted on ERA YouTube page. With that, thank you for joining our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Have a wonderful rest of the day.